Hi, welcome Gregg Perry, the historic preservationist. Welcome to our abridged Arts in Bloom weekend. It's going to be a virtual weekend coming up in May in just a few weeks. And so come on, let's take a look at what I'm doing and what I'm showing for the Arts in Bloom. Come on in. So welcome to the Historic Preservationist Studio. This is where we're filming our shows, TV shows on Roku. And this is where I do all the restoration and conservation of 18th and 19th century pieces of furniture and wooden artifacts. This Arts in Bloom, I'm going to be focusing on the art form of marquetry. It's some of the beaux arts, the very high arts practiced in Paris, developed in Holland. It was refined in France during the early 19th century, late 18th century. And so all this is 1/16 of an inch thick. And what I needed here, this was a piece of marquetry for a panel, for a raised panel on a French armoire. And I have a basic background in olive wood. This has 23 different species of wood in it. And so these are all cut out individually. In this are 900 pieces of individual cut pieces of wood. When this panel is done, it will have approximately 45 to 55 hours in, roughly. So let's put some alcohol in. We won't raise the grain with alcohol. Let's just see what this is going to look like with finish. So otherwise, if you put water on it, it's quite doomed. So let's just take a look. I'm going to hold this up and so we can see this. Okay. So you can see how beautiful. So this, putting a gum lac, as the French put it, or a French polish, or shellac finish, this is what it's going to look like. So these are natural colors in all the woods here. When I create this, I can create one or I can create multiples of. I can create, maybe 24 of these just as easy as I can cut one out. Just a matter of having more pieces of veneer. But essentially, what we're going to do is we create our drawing. So I draw this on a piece of paper. And I put the piece of paper down and I mark out the species of woods on all these individual cutouts where I want. And then I proceed to cut out using veneer. I'm using a scroll saw or chavelet. We're going to go into the other room. I'll just show you the scroll saw. We're not doing any demonstrating today, but I'll show you the scroll saw. In addition to all these pieces where you're seeing a little bit of darkened area, that's giving you the three-dimensionality. It's called sand shading. Remember, marquetry has been around probably for nearly 600 years, going back to the ancient Egyptians. So all these, what we do, you would have in the studio I have today on a hot plate, I have a bowl of sand on a metal container, and it's heated. And so just imagine that you have a bowl and you create hoops and valleys, and it's on high. You could have, in a valley, you could have 350. On a little mountain, if I create a mountain of sand a half-inch higher, in there. So you stick the pieces of wood after you cut them out and you burn them, you singe them to give the three-dimensionality that goes in the piece. So that's where we're getting the three-dimensionality, yeah. So it's wonderful. And here's another piece here. This is an urn. These pieces have been used for years for demonstration, probably about over 20 years. We're missing some pieces. They start to pop out as they get abused. Now, typically, this is the front side. The better coloration, the better configuration of wood is on this side. This side gets glued down to the panel substrate, and then this paper is put on with a high glue. It gets wetted and gets scraped off. So the best look of this panel is underneath in the back, okay? So while I'm in this room, I'm going to take you around, and we could, we'll just do a quick scan of the room. Behind me are just the typical carving tools used for my trade. We have over 700 carving tools, and why do I need carving tools? Because I'm a sculptor. I do ball and claw feet, I do shells, I do busts of people, for cartouches and flaming finials for highboys and things like that. So I'm using my art to capture and restore historical materialism from my predecessors. So I'm here to save what people 300 to 400 years ago have done, these great pieces of art. And as we scan over here, we have a highboy base, just showing you what's in the shop right now. A highboy base from the 18th century mahogany. Over here we have a chest of drawers in curly birch, which is American, about 1720. Next to it is a lowboy base by William Savory. This piece is about 1776, the base, but the top is not right. It's going to be replaced. And in the back, for the Historical Society of Mullica Hill, one of their benches. They had a number of benches there. They were lost for many years, and this is the first one of 3 in for restoration. Okay? So let's take a walk back, and we're going to look at the scroll saw. I'm not sure there's anything else. All the molding planes up above here that I use for the areas of restoration. So when you need an exacting copy, you can do it in 2 different ways. Use a scratch stock to achieve it, or get something that's very close to the molding plane and use your carving tools, file, and wraps to clean it up. Otherwise, a lot of pigments. We have a lot of different varieties of shellac, natural colorations, and some period chairs hanging here. So going back to the back part of the studio. Back in the old days, now it's getting old days, in the 1990s, this is the last of 375 tall case clocks I made, and this is in curled maple. This is the most phenomenal grade of any one I've done. Look at the curling, even without any staining. It's absolutely stunning. But with the way that antiquity is going, our younger people don't care so much about antiques, and it just sits here. So, but it's still a great tribute. So welcome to the back part of the studio here on the lake. But let's get back to marquetry, what's going to be showed in Arts in Bloom, which will be coming up in November. In addition to the panels I just showed you, so this piece has a little bit of marquetry on it. It's not a lot, but so it's a good indicator. So this is from the Historical Society up in Gloucester County, and this is one of their prized possessions. This is a line and berry piece from Chester County. So somebody has removed the feet. It's in for new bund feet. It needs a new base molding. Somebody's bastardized this to the nth degree by putting the wrong hardware. If this wrong hardware is off by 200 years, this chest dates back to around 1690. And anyway, so back to the marquetry. So this was like an early form of marquetry, inlaid. So the basic chest is in mahogany, or I'm sorry, walnut, and these dots are in mahogany, and these stringings, so to speak, forming the tulips and the berries, are in holly. So somebody's put a bad finish on, an incorrect finish. In addition, the top is severely cracked. We probably can't see the top, but the top has similar motif designs of tulips and berries on the top, and the top has a huge crack going down it. So this is going for a total restructuring of a superstructure, new feet, new base molding. We have to hide the holes. We have to either find old hardware, or I have to cast. I do metal casting. We have to cast new hardware from an old copy that we'll be finding. So this is the application today of marquetry. To my right, this is a typical scroll saw. It's just a DeWalt scroll saw. And here I was just earlier cutting a piece of poplar out for a restoration of marquetry. So when I make that initial drawing, I cut that out with an X-Acto knife and put it on the piece of wood. And this piece of wood is a piece of green poplar sandwiched inside. These are 2 sacrificial pieces to keep that piece of poplar from splintering. So I tack nail it down, and I actually get in here my scroll saw, and I cut the piece out. So I do this in 2 ways. I either use the modern day scroll saw, or I'm using a chavelet. In my studio, in the other room of the studio, I have 2 chavelets dating back to the 18th century. So what is a chavelet? A chavelet is a 1750 to 1770 marquetry cutting machine. It's a wooden bench with a hand scroll saw, which is utilizing basically a jeweler's blade. So I'm using with this, I get too much vibration at times. That's why I like to go traditional on using the chavelets. So we can just take a quick look at the rest of the shop. We have a great scenic view of a historic lake here in Alloway, and this is where the first glassmaking in America started, from Casper, Worcesterburg. So very historic, hallowed ground here in the history of Salem County, the history of New Jersey, the history of our country right here. So we hope to see everyone out here in the last weekend in November for Arts in Bloom. So signing out, the historic preservationist Gregg Perry.